Welcome back to Chapter by Chapter Classics, the short-form classic literature podcast where each episode walks you through a few chapters of a great book. Previously in Wuthering Heights, we saw Catherine and Heathcliff's childhood bond, Hindley's cruelty, Catherine's time with the Lintons, and the painful moment when Heathcliff left after hearing that Catherine planned to marry Edgar. In this episode, we're covering chapters 10 through 14, where Heathcliff returns changed, old wounds reopen, and Isabella Linton makes a dangerous mistake.
Imagine you've spent 3 years meticulously building this perfectly calm, totally socially acceptable life.
Right, just doing everything by the book.
Exactly. You've smoothed over the rough edges of your past, you married into the right family, and everything is just quiet.
A fragile kind of quiet, but yeah.
Yeah. And then, without any warning, the one person who was never ever supposed to return just walks right through your front door.
Oh, it's the ultimate nightmare scenario.
It really is. It just shatters that fragile reality into a million pieces. So welcome back to the Chapter by Chapter Classic series. I'm so glad you're joining us for this custom-tailored deep dive into chapters 10 through 14 of Wuthering Heights.
And we've got a really clear mission for today's deep dive, right?
We do. We are charting the massive, almost catastrophic emotional and social shockwaves caused by Heathcliff's sudden return to the moors.
It's basically where everything just falls apart.
Completely. We're going to look at how his desperate desire for love and his absolute thirst for revenge become just dangerously intertwined.
Right, and how it completely turns the established social order upside down.
So, just to briefly set the scene for you, remember where we left off. Heathcliff ran away into that stormy night as this degraded, heartbroken teenager.
Yeah, he had just overheard Catherine say it would degrade her to marry him.
Exactly. He was completely broken. But now, it's 3 years later, and the man who walks back into Catherine's life, well, okay, let's unpack this right away. We start with that immediate visceral shock in chapter 10.
It truly is a seismic event in the narrative. And I mean, primarily it's because of the sheer contrast with the boy who left.
Oh, the glow-up is insane. But it's not just a glow-up, is it?
Oh, not at all. It's a strategic reinvention. The man who walks back onto the moors is entirely different. And that difference is exactly what makes him so lethal to the peace Catherine built with Edgar Linton.
We really need to talk about the mechanics of that physical transformation.
Right.
Because he's no longer the dirty, slouching plowboy that Edgar remembers, right?
Right. He returns as this tall, athletic, well-formed man. He has the upright carriage of a soldier.
Yeah, all the physical marks of his former degradation are entirely gone.
But, and this is key, specifically notes that a half-civilized ferocity still lurks in his eyes.
Ooh, yes. Half-civilized ferocity.
Which tells us everything we need to know, really. The exterior has been ruthlessly polished, but the core remains completely unchangeably wild.
And the immediate reactions from Catherine and Edgar couldn't be more polarized. I mean, Catherine is breathless.
She's wild. She's entirely unable to hide her joy.
Yeah, she actually tells him she will think it a dream tomorrow. She is just glowing with this visceral shock.
And Edgar, conversely, grows pale with what the text calls pure annoyance.
Pure annoyance and, frankly, acute discomfort. His immediate reflexive instinct is to try and force Catherine to receive Heathcliff in the kitchen.
Right. He is desperately clinging to the old hierarchy. He still wants to view Heathcliff as that ragged servant boy.
It's just such an awkward, dangerous dynamic. It's like, okay, it's like your high school ex showing up to a formal dinner party you're hosting, right?
Oh, no.
But they've inexplicably transformed into this wealthy, intimidating Navy SEAL.
That is a terrifying image.
Right. And Catherine seems dangerously naive here. Or, I don't know, maybe she's just willfully ignoring how deeply humiliating this entire scenario is for Edgar.
I see where you're going with the Navy SEAL comparison, but I'd actually argue it's far more insidious than that.
Oh, really?
How so? Well, a Navy SEAL implies a disciplined, state-sanctioned threat, you know. Heathcliff is entirely rogue. He is using gentility as a Trojan horse.
Oh, I like that. A Trojan horse.
Think about why his new, polite, stern demeanor is actually far more threatening to Edgar than his old roughness.
Because Edgar doesn't know how to handle it.
Exactly. When Heathcliff was a degraded servant, Edgar held all the cards. He had the law, the money, the social standing.
He could just dismiss him.
Right. But now, Heathcliff is equipped to fight Edgar on his own social turf. He has this mysterious wealth, he has a gentleman's posture, and he weaponizes the very rules of hospitality that Edgar prizes.
Oh, he absolutely weaponizes manners, like when Edgar hesitates to shake his hand.
Yes. Heathcliff just drops his own hand and stands there coolly, forcing Edgar to speak first. He essentially traps Edgar in a cage of politeness.
That is so manipulative. And because he now has the social standing and the money to mingle with the gentry, he needs a base of operations, right?
He needs somewhere to execute his broader plans.
And it's chilling that this leads him straight back into Wuthering Heights, the home of his childhood abuser, Hindley.
What's fascinating here is that it's a calculated financial siege.
A financial siege, yeah. Because Hindley is, well, he's a mess.
He is. Hindley, who once brutalized Heathcliff, is now completely consumed by this reckless, self-destructive gambling addiction.
Just drinking and gambling everything away.
Right. He is rapidly losing all his money. But instead of just beating Hindley physically, Heathcliff uses the English property system against him.
It's so cold-blooded. He provides the funds for Hindley's gambling, right?
Yes, and by doing so, he is slowly mortgaging Hindley's ancestral land directly to himself.
He just sets up lodging at the Heights and literally sits there watching his former abuser destroy his own legacy.
And we immediately see the collateral damage of this setup.
Oh, young Hareton. It's heartbreaking. Hindley's son is completely neglected.
And Heathcliff steps right into that void.
Yeah, he actively manipulates and corrupts the boy. It's this long-term generational revenge. But his trap extends far beyond the Heights, doesn't it?
It reaches right into Thrushcross Grange.
Exactly. Edgar's sister, Isabella Linton, she becomes completely infatuated with Heathcliff.
Which is a disaster waiting to happen. Isabella is 18, she's infantile in her manners, but highly temperamental.
She falls into this massive delusion, and it leads to one of the most brutal, honest conversations we see between Catherine and Isabella.
It's a fascinating collision of literary tropes, actually. Isabella looks at Heathcliff and projects this entire fantasy onto him.
She thinks she's in a romance novel.
She does. She sees a brooding, misunderstood romantic hero from a Gothic novel, someone whose dark exterior can just be loved away.
And Catherine violently shatters that illusion.
She tries to, at least.
Yeah, she gives Isabella this fiercely honest warning. She explicitly calls Heathcliff an unreclaimed creature.
An arid wilderness.
Yes, and a fierce, pitiless, wolfish man. She literally tells her sister-in-law that Heathcliff would crush her like a sparrow's egg.
It's such a violent image.
It is. She even lays out the financial reality, warning Isabella that Heathcliff would only marry her for her fortune. But I want to throw this question to you listening.
Oh, this is a good one.
Is Catherine actually warning Isabella out of genuine sisterly concern? Or is she just acting like a dog in the manger? Like, is she just fiercely, selfishly guarding her territory because she absolutely cannot stomach the idea of Heathcliff with anyone else?
I mean, you really can't separate the two motives.
You think it's both?
Definitely. Catherine is fiercely territorial. She explicitly views Heathcliff as her own property. But her territoriality doesn't make her warning inaccurate.
That's true. She's not lying about him.
Yeah, not at all. Catherine is the only person in this entire ecosystem who fundamentally understands Heathcliff's unchangeable, dark nature.
She knows he isn't a rough diamond waiting to be polished.
Exactly. She knows he is a predator, but she also wants to maintain this impossible status quo. She wants to be Edgar's respected, civilized wife while simultaneously remaining Heathcliff's wild soulmate.
And Isabella threatens that delicate balance.
She does.
But that status quo is completely unsustainable anyway. And Catherine's warnings fail. Isabella totally ignores her.
Which gives Heathcliff the perfect opening.
Right. He realizes he can exploit Isabella's naive crush to instigate a massive explosion in the Linton household. So he corners Isabella and kisses her, totally knowing Catherine will see.
It's completely calculated.
When Catherine demands he leave Isabella alone, the polite mask completely slips.
It really does. He coldly retorts that he is not Catherine's husband, so she has no right to be jealous.
And he tells her he fully intends to seek his revenge.
Right. He essentially says she has treated him infernally, and if she thinks he will suffer unrevenged, she is delusional.
The tension in the house is just a powder keg at this point.
And Heathcliff just lit the match.
Which brings us to the boiling point in Chapter 11. Here's where it gets really interesting. The kitchen confrontation.
Oh, this scene is incredible.
Edgar walks in, furious, and finally attempts to assert his authority. He calls Heathcliff a low ruffian and a blackguard, and demands he leave the Grange forever.
And Heathcliff's response is just to laugh in his face.
Yeah, he mocks Edgar's threats. He says it's like a lamb trying to act like a bull. But Catherine's reaction is the most revealing part of this entire sequence.
She certainly doesn't try to de-escalate things.
Not at all. She executes a terrifying power play. She locks the door to the kitchen and throws the key into the hottest part of the fire.
That detail about the fire is just brilliant. She is literally and symbolically throwing them into a crucible.
It perfectly exposes the deeply toxic way Catherine operates. She forces Edgar into a physical confrontation with a man twice his size.
She traps them.
It's like an unhinged theater director locking the doors of the auditorium, so the actors are forced to perform the violent tragedy she wants to see.
That's a great way to put it.
She uses Heathcliff to punish Edgar for his jealousy, and simultaneously uses Edgar's status to shield herself from Heathcliff's rage.
I'd frame it slightly differently, actually.
Oh, how so?
She isn't just a director pulling strings, she's a trapped animal lashing out. By locking that door, she strips away the polite society rules that Edgar relies on.
Oh, wow. Yeah, she levels the playing field.
Exactly. She forces Edgar to face the raw, violent reality of the moors that she and Heathcliff grew up in.
But she underestimates the absolute reality of that violence, doesn't she?
She does. Edgar is completely humiliated and cornered. He has no choice but to strike Heathcliff in the neck or throat, and then he just escapes out the back to get his men and weapons.
And Heathcliff is forced to leave, but he vows to crush Edgar's ribs later.
The verbal sparring is over. Blood has been drawn.
And the physical violence of that confrontation forces Edgar to finally draw a hard line in the sand. He issues an impossible ultimatum to Catherine.
The ultimate breaking point.
Yeah. She must choose. It is either him or Heathcliff.
And Edgar thinks he is making a totally reasonable demand for a husband to make.
Right. From his perspective, it's just logical.
But he doesn't realize he is asking Catherine to tear her own soul in half.
And her reaction is total furious despair. She locks herself in her room for days. I mean, from Monday night straight through to Thursday or Friday, just refusing to eat anything.
It's a complete physical and mental collapse.
She descends into this deeply disturbing, delirious state. And it isn't just a tantrum, right? Her mind literally fractures.
Yes. She forgets the last 7 years of her life.
She forgets she's even married to Edgar.
She genuinely believes she is a child again, back in her old oak-paneled bed at Wuthering Heights.
She expresses this agonizing, desperate desire to be out on the moors, wishing she were a half-savage and hardy and free girl again.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we really need to look at the psychological stakes here, especially in the context of the era.
Right, they would have called it brain fever.
Exactly. But looking at it through a modern lens, we are witnessing a catastrophic identity crisis brought on by unbearable cognitive dissonance.
Because she's tried to be two different people.
Yes. Becoming Mrs. Linton, the lady of Thrushcross Grange, required Catherine to completely bury her true, untamed nature.
She had to put on a costume of civilization.
And Edgar's ultimatum rips that costume away. It forces her to face the reality that she cannot exist in two contradictory worlds at once.
The psychological strain of trying to reconcile the civilized lady with the wild girl of the moors literally breaks her grip on reality.
It is harrowing to witness.
It really is. She is hallucinating, pulling the feathers out of her pillow, utterly convinced she is dying. And while Catherine is locked away, losing her mind in this psychological prison, Heathcliff is dealing with the fallout.
Right, he realizes his physical access to the Grange has been permanently severed by Edgar's banishment.
He can't get to Catherine at all. So to execute his revenge on Edgar, he takes the only weapon left sitting out in the open.
Isabella?
Yes. So what does this all mean for chapters 12 and 13? Well, Heathcliff pivots his strategy flawlessly. He and Isabella elope.
Which deals a devastating blow to the Linton family name and to Edgar's heart.
But the grim, terrifying reality of what Isabella has actually done sets in almost immediately.
It doesn't take long for the illusion to shatter.
Not at all. She eventually manages to write a letter to Nellie Dean, and oh my gosh, it is a straight-up gothic nightmare.
It really reveals the absolute squalor and terror of her new life as Mrs. Heathcliff.
The letter details how Hindley is acting like a hungry wolf, just consumed by thoughts of murdering Heathcliff for his gold and his blood.
And then there's Hareton.
Yeah. Hareton is this miserable, neglected child who purposely makes lumps in her porridge out of spite.
And Joseph is endlessly scolding her.
She has no warm place to sleep, no decent food, and a husband who openly despises her. Isabella finally admits her massive mistake. She writes plainly, "I do hate him. I am wretched. I have been a fool."
The physical state of Wuthering Heights in her letter is incredibly important here.
How so?
Well, Bronte uses the architectural and domestic decay of the house, the dirt, the lack of manners, the coldness, to perfectly mirror the moral decay of the characters trapped inside it.
That makes so much sense.
Isabella thought she was running away to a romantic adventure, but Bronte completely subverts the Gothic romance trope.
The brooding hero isn't a hero at all.
Exactly. He's just a monster, and the old manor house is just a dirty, violent prison.
Which brings up a really dark irony for you listening. Catherine literally handed Isabella the spoiler warning for Heathcliff's entire personality.
She outlined exactly what would happen.
She told her exactly how she would be crushed, and Isabella entirely ignored it. So, can we even pity Isabella here? Or did her romantic delusions make her a willing participant in her own kidnapping?
I don't think it's fair to blame the victim of abuse for the abuse itself, even if they were warned.
That's a fair point.
Isabella's foolishness was believing she was special enough to change a man like Heathcliff. Her suffering is entirely real, and the emotional and physical cruelty Heathcliff subjects her to is abhorrent.
It's incredibly hard to read.
But her suffering also reveals something critical about Heathcliff. His revenge on Edgar isn't enough to satisfy him.
Right. Ruining Isabella and isolating Edgar doesn't fix the core problem for him.
Not at all.
He is absolutely desperate to see Catherine again, which leads to this chilling hostage negotiation in Chapter 14 when Nellie visits Wuthering Heights.
Nellie arrives to deliver Edgar's message.
Right, that Edgar refuses to forgive Isabella and will not write to her. He considers their relationship severed.
And Heathcliff uses Nellie's physical presence in his domain to basically corner her.
He demands updates on Catherine's failing health. And his monologue here about the nature of love is, it's one of the most defining moments of his character.
This raises an important question about how he views love versus how Edgar views it.
Yeah, because he openly mocks Edgar's love for Catherine, comparing it to mere duty and humanity.
He says Edgar trying to restore Catherine to health is like trying to plant an oak tree in a tiny flower pot.
That flower pot metaphor is just so arrogant, yet so vivid. He genuinely believes his obsessive, violent passion is vastly superior to Edgar's gentle, civilized care.
And meanwhile, Isabella is desperately trying to warn Nellie.
Yeah, she tells Nellie that Heathcliff is a lying fiend who only married her to gain power over Edgar.
Heathcliff's twisted logic here is paramount to understanding the rest of the narrative.
How does he justify all this cruelty?
He justifies his extreme cruelty to Isabella and his desire to destroy Edgar because, in his mind, only his and Catherine's souls actually exist.
Everyone else is just an obstacle.
An obstacle, a tool, or collateral damage. He actually tells Nellie that if Edgar loved Catherine with all the power of his puny being, he couldn't love her as much in 80 years as Heathcliff could in a single day.
And he leverages that overwhelming, violent passion to effectively take Nellie hostage.
He does.
He threatens to keep her locked up at Wuthering Heights, and he swears he will physically fight his way into the Grange over Edgar's dead body, unless Nellie agrees to arrange a secret, unchaperoned interview between him and the dying Catherine.
He gives her an impossible, terrifying choice.
Basically, help me sneak in, or I will bring a bloodbath to your doorstep. And terrified by the reality of his violence, Nellie agrees to carry a letter to Catherine.
It is a masterclass in manipulation. He uses the threat of violence against the people Nellie cares about to force her complicity.
It really leaves us looking out over a truly devastating emotional landscape.
It's bleak.
Let's just look at the wreckage we've covered today. Heathcliff has returned, but he has basically brought hell with him.
The Linton family is completely shattered.
Isabella is trapped in a literal house of horrors with a man who loathes her. Edgar is isolated, humiliated, and grieving a wife who is still alive.
And Catherine is wasting away, her mind completely fractured by the sheer force of the collision between her two worlds.
The societal rules, the property laws, the polite manners that held everyone together in a fragile peace, they've all been utterly obliterated.
The veneer of civilization is just gone, leaving only raw, destructive emotion.
And that leaves us with a very dark question for you to mull over as we wrap up this deep dive. We so often hear Wuthering Heights described as one of the greatest love stories in all of English literature.
It's on romance lists everywhere.
It's inspired countless adaptations. But looking at the sheer wreckage of chapters 10 through 14, is Heathcliff's relentless pursuit of Catherine actually love?
That's the big question.
Or are we reading a story of a pure destructive obsession where everyone else is just collateral damage in a war between two deeply broken souls? Think about that perfectly calm life we talked about at the beginning, completely shattered just because someone came back. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep reading, keep exploring the text, and we will see you next time as we venture further onto the moors.
That's chapters 10 through 14. Heathcliff back in the neighborhood, Catherine torn between past and present, Edgar pushed to his limit, and Isabella trapped in a marriage that reveals Heathcliff's cruelty. In the next episode, we'll cover chapters 15 through 18, where Catherine and Heathcliff meet in one of the novel's most intense scenes, and the story shifts toward death, inheritance, and the next generation. Thanks for listening to Chapter by Chapter Classics. If this episode helps you follow this story, follow the show in your podcast app so you don't miss the next chapter. And if you're enjoying this series, please take a moment to rate the podcast or leave a short review. It really helps other readers and students find the show.